Matt Stafford is headed back to the Rams. That's the big breaking NFL news today. Welcome back, Grant and Danny, on the Fan. What does that mean for the two teams that thought they were signing him, or were hoping to at least be able to bring him in via trade? The Las Vegas Raiders and the New York Giants. Well, at least one of those teams is ready to pivot, according to Diana Rossini of The Athletic, Danny. The Giants are shifting their interest to Aaron Rodgers. They've been discussing it all week in Indianapolis internally, according to Diana's sources. So what could go wrong? A desperate coaching staff in New York trying to save their jobs by bringing in aging Aaron Rodgers. I think this is going to go swimmingly.
The Bob Churchill bad they did call it a stat buster, Bruce. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, we're like, this is why this should just never happen. This sort of phase of a team that never was, but the talent evaluators have convinced themselves that they're close. They are not close. They're close to just a different kind of disaster. They're basically going, let's start a controlled fire and leave the room and see what happens. I love this, by the way. I hope it happens so badly. Well, I want more.
Did they not see him with the Jets the last 2 years?
I hope they didn't.
How could you possibly, in your own city, your roommates at your own stadium, how could you possibly have seen at 40 this guy tear his Achilles, and then at 41 him play poor football? Because he did. You know, the counting stats were okay: 28 touchdowns, 11 picks, 3,900 yards. By the way, in 17 games, which is not that great, but still. But if you look at any of the metrics, the really advanced numbers, I mean, we're talking about a bottom 7 to 10 starter in most categories in the NFL in terms of full-time starters last year, Rodgers, and they go, yeah, we'll sign up for that. Now, this is what happens when you bring guys back that you probably shouldn't have, by the way. This is why, even though it might have been a year too early, if you're John Mara, you've got to fire these guys a couple months ago because they are in CYA mode at this point. They are desperately trying to keep their jobs, and they're now going, okay, how do we win 9 games this year? How do we get to 500-ish? How do we show enough growth that then we can, at our exit interview, after we go 7-10, say, but look at the progress we made. We are now. I bet you they don't think they're close at this moment. I'll disagree with you that they think they're on the verge of anything. What they're trying to do now is, how do we go from bad to mediocre so that we can just talk ourselves into having another shot at the end of this season? And that's when you make really bad decisions like this, where you go get a quarterback who has proven over a couple of years now that he is a shell of what he was, and you hand him the keys. And it's not like this is a guy that'll come in there and be a good soldier either. You got to build everything around him in his image and deal with all his, rock petting and whatever other weirdness comes with it. It's just a disaster in waiting for me.
You probably have to sign Randall Cobb and a couple other guys from Green Bay. Time's gone. Oh, I love it so much.
Has he lost that privilege, do you think?
I don't know that in his mind, he ever does. Like, who knows? I mean, it's going to be a fight. And if he doesn't get it, is it temper tantrum time? Is it, I'm not coming to training camp time until you sign, I don't know, that Alan Lazard to be my number 3? Like, I have no idea what it's like to deal with that guy at this point. Again, you do it when he's the MVP of the league a couple of years ago. You don't now. But again, when you're desperate, you make bad decisions. I mean, I wonder if Ron Rivera can share the analytics of football or whatever spreadsheet that said in Indianapolis that Carson Wentz was a good idea. Maybe there's some good numbers there for Aaron Rodgers that those boobs could read.
Seems like Indianapolis is where a lot of bad ideas get cooked up.
I know, seriously.
It makes sense. I mean, it's the beginning of the offseason. You swing and miss on whatever your plan A is. And Rossini said that this was their plan B. Like, internally, they wanted Stafford. They thought maybe they could make it work, although as of late last night, we started to find out if he's leaving, it's probably to go play for Brady with Vegas. So the Giants were going to be left missing out on him anyway. At this moment, their quarterback room is Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, and Tim Boyle. And Joe Shane and Brian Dable's jobs are on the line. That's how you get fired. That's how you make sure that you will not be back next year. So that's where the urgency is coming from. Mm-hmm. Whether it's Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson or, if somehow Kirk Cousins was released by Atlanta, they're going to have a veteran starting there, I would think, rather than trading up for one of these young guys.
And now, here's the thing. there's a decent chance too, by the way, if quarterbacks don't go 1-2 in this draft, if Abdul Carter goes, if Travis Hunter goes, the Giants could draft one of these young passers, which is probably the most prudent thing to do. Whether or not you love them or not, you're up at the top of the board. You've got a chance at a young quarterback and a chance for a fresh start and maybe build around this person to see if they're great or not. But if you've got to win right now this second, you may not view that as a prudent course. Again, it's you already said it very well. When you're this much of a disaster, you can't have desperate people that are there to try to make something work, kind of. The whole point is to be great. The whole point isn't to show marginal improvement and turn in a report card. This isn't remedial English. You know what I mean? Like, it is such a gong show, and I'm here for it. I love it.
They also just have so many needs that, again, what they should be doing in their best interest no longer matches the best interest of their decision makers. But I don't think taking a rookie quarterback should even be allowed. And this is not how teams operate. Owners don't think this way. But I would say, no, you're not doing that.
Oh, because the nest is such a mess?
Well, because they're going to get fired at the end of the year when they go 4-13 with the rookie quarterback or 6-10 or whatever it is, 6-11. And then the next guy comes in and inherits a quarterback he didn't pick. And it is the death sentence for a new GM and a new head coach to come in here and have to inherit somebody else's decision. I'm also just not sold on Shedeur Sanders. I like his game a lot. He actually is a lot more in line with like what I'm looking for in a quarterback in terms of an athlete and a pocket passer who wants to stay in the pocket. But the makeup and the flashiness, and he's doing his own podcast from Radio Row. And today at the podium, he's talking about loving the haters and wanting the haters. And I don't know. His demeanor is just not my favorite for a young quarterback coming out, but his dad's Deion Sanders. So, we don't have a lot in common on how we're going to like carry ourselves publicly, probably. But I think he can play. I think he's got a chance to be a really good quarterback in the league. But I don't know if I'm putting my career in his hands. I think they go veteran QB on a bridge deal 1 or 2 years. And then probably that veteran quarterback and this staff are all out at the end of the year.
Is it Rodgers?
Yeah, probably. I mean, if that really is their plan B, I've said all along, I do not know where Aaron Rodgers is going to end up because I don't think anything makes sense. I still don't think the Giants make sense, but if they're actually interested, I think he'd be fired up to start anywhere. He doesn't have a lot of options.
Yeah, so I always thought Vegas was where he would end up just because they're kind of screwed. They're in the perpetual lower middle class where you can't finish bad enough to get in the top 3. You can't be good enough to have anything meaningful happen. And they were destined to do this bridge to nowhere thing in perpetuity, a la Washington or Cleveland or Detroit or, some of these teams that just sort of always seem to be in this terrible spot for so many years. And I know Detroit's out of it now, but you know what I mean? Like just for a generation, you're always like Chicago, for example, just could never get that 1, 2, or 3 pick. And you're just trying with a bridge to nowhere. That's where the Raiders are now on that hamster wheel of nothingness. So I always felt like that's where he was going to go, where it's just sort of like, hey, this is a resident sideshow kind of a thing. It's like the aging star that sets up a residence in Vegas. Like you go see Celine Dion and then swing by afterwards and watch Aaron Rodgers orchestrate everything.
I guess I could see that. A lot of the veterans don't make sense there. Like, to me, they hired Pete Carroll to elevate their floor. I don't think Pete Carroll's going to be there in 5 years. He's the oldest NFL head coach. I think Tom Brady went and got him for the same reason Dan Snyder thought it would be a good idea to bring in Ron Rivera. And you could actually make the case that this worked a little bit, which is to say, bring some decorum, bring some legitimacy, hire some grown-ups, and let's win or lose, let's compete every week, and let's not be a joke. And I think that's like Brady's idea is before we can sprint, we got to be able to stand up and jog. And I think Pete Carroll will help them to do that. And then when you're able to stand up and you're walking at a decent clip, you're doing the bit where you put some cans in bags and walk around the elementary school like that ladies group on a Wednesday morning. Now you can hire a Ben Johnson or somebody like that in a few years who is the hot shot coordinator that everybody wants. And maybe you can be the it team. But I think this is the first of a couple moves in the big picture plan. So that's why a veteran linked to Carroll to just immediately help raise the tide would actually make a lot of sense to me. But I guess Rodgers could be that guy. I mean, like Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll have a past. I don't think they're getting back together.
You wouldn't think. Right?
I was thinking like trading for Derek Carr, had he not have already played there, is the kind of thing I'm talking about, right?
That tier, yeah.
That's not happening because there's history there. So, yeah, I mean, who's left? It's Rodgers, his cousins, like guys like that. And the free agent pile is Jacoby Brissett, Marcus Mariota, who's already played there, by the way. If I had to guess right now what the Raiders do, I would say Sam Darnold ends up starting in Vegas.
That's a good one, too.
And that Aaron Rodgers, I guess, ends up with the Giants, which is hilarious. If he goes from the Jets to the Giants and stays in New York, this league, which is already hysterical, got funnier.
I love it. Now, here's the thing. There'll be a handful of games he plays well, probably be against Washington, and it'll be annoying, but whatever. That's just destined for a plane crash. Like that's just destined for a disastrous situation there if those two combustible situations end up together.
By the way, the Jets are the most snake-bitten, just kind of downtrodden team probably in the league. Their fan base. I mean, you could tell them that they won a game and they'd ask you how much time's left on the clock. You're like, no, it's over.
It's over.
And they would still fear somehow that the game would be taken away from them. Like, that's their fan base at this point. They get Rodgers, everyone threw a big party, and then they fell on their face for 2 years. The most Jets thing ever would be if they have to watch him in New York lead the Giants to some, like, unbelievable renaissance season where Rodgers plays his butt off and somehow the Giants go 12-5 or something. Can you imagine? And the Jets, after he tore his Achilles and then came back and played like crap last year, their fans are just listening to WFAN every day where they also talk about the Giants and hearing about how amazing Rodgers, the comeback player of the year and the MVP candidate, is playing. That would be the Jetsiest thing that's ever happened.
I mean, like, so everybody's, juju's on the line here. So that you're right. Like, what's the most powerful? The Jets' negative forces and how bad it could be for their fans is the most snake bit. That would be something. I mean, it would frustrate the hell out of me. Obviously, he's a Washington fan because I care about us, and if they're good, that's annoying. I like them down there in fourth place where they can't get right. But yeah, that would be the Jetsiest thing of all time.
Well, you don't have to worry about it, I don't think. I mean, we'll talk about a lack of overall talent. Malik Neighbors is a star at wide receiver. Wan'Dale Robinson, the former second-round pick, will be back. Okay as a possession guy. Darius Slayton, the former fifth-rounder, who's been around forever for them as a free agent, as is their starting right guard, Greg Van Roten. There's just not a lot there. I like Tyrone Tracy in the backfield. Good little player. Him and Neighbors is a nice starter set in terms of weaponry, but they need a lot. Defensively, they got okay players, and they're going to have to probably make more headway on that side of the ball, depending on what happens at quarterback, if they're going to win any football games.